do say something, young lass.
That was
Beautiful. I was trying to pick it up better on my
We should
mic.
just do the whole show as a couple old geezers. That'd be
A
good.
couple old cowpokes.
This couch doesn't rock the way it used to. Somebody upholstered my rocking chair. What's going on?
Gadzooks. I've been sitting on a pile of gold. We would drive Cass crazy.
No, I love it. Just don't expect me to say funny voices.
Well, you're just the nurse that takes care of us and gives us the little cups with the pills we like. You don't gotta participate, Nurse Cass. You just let us old fellers rock in our socks.
And having a little between.
Jasper here only speaks in flute tubes. It's like that guy in Breaking Bad with the little bell.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I only have the flute, you know.
Mm. So you're a multi-instrumentalist.
You
I
rip
didn't
on
even
that thing, man.
know this.
Something like that. It's funny because I never played anything formerly like with strings or with hand positions, you know, like frets and things. But like the first instrument I played was a didgeridoo.
Whoa, that's like a really hard instrument.
It's a weird instrument. I mean, it's the oldest wind instrument. It's the widest arrangement of farting noises you can artfully make. So I went, I was kind of an Australiaphile growing up. I always had like this.
No way.
Yeah, I just had like this this draw
Down
towards
under.
Down under. I was all fascinated by the strange wildlife that was percolating up from that weird little corner of the evolutionary laboratory.
In the gills.
Ah.
The gills.
So I think it was 1997 or something, so I was like 15, 16. I got to visit Australia, and then I went into a didgeridoo store, and I was like, how do you play these tubes? And they were like, you just blabber your lips like this. And then you put it against the opening, and that's all there is to it. And so I like played around. I kind of caught it, but I couldn't circular breathe. So for a few years, I was just like, I got like a didgeridoo it yourself, which is just like a PVC tube with a little bit of wax on the top.
Didgeridoo it yourself.
I like that.
You get those at Home Depot. A lot of people don't know. I mean, Blue Man Group knows. Home
Blue Man
Depot
Group does
has
know
what's
about
going
it.
on. has all the goods. And so I got one of those, and I started playing it. And for years, I played it without being able to circular breathe. So I just like stop on the beat. And then when I came to California in like, was it 2006, my first friend, rest in peace, Frankie Mann, aka Jungle Love, taught me to circular breathe on the way to LA. Like he would stop on the side of the road to take a nap, and I would practice.
Wow.
And a lot of people will say you practice, you take like a straw in a cup of water and you try to blow continuous bubbles. And I was like, that's like somebody teaching you how to ride a bike by like, you know, like climbing fences. Like what? I want the immediate thing. So I was just like practiced it, and then at some point I got it, and that became very much like a vehicle. I like instruments that are also weapons when I'm traveling. You know? So
that's good.
Walking around with like this didgeridoo was like a sword on my back. I had by then like this really dense eucalyptus didge, you know, which was like, you know, real thwacker. So I'd walk around with my portfolio as a shield and this didgeridoo on my back. And nowadays, I play this flute a lot, which was made by a friend of rootflute.com, Daniel Hansen. This is one of his earlier models, which is just like, as you can see, a bamboo root.
Cool.
That he turned into this beautiful flute with what I'm told is the mouthpiece of, I think, a bansari or like some kind of Japanese flute. But nowadays he makes them really elaborate. Like I'll have like triple reeded antler flutes that are embedded with all kinds of gemstones and fossils. Like I was joking with a friend the other day. We were looking on his website and we're like, so what is the thought process in this? Where he's like, antlers, that's the new flute. And then he's sitting around and he's like, what's it gonna be? Mammoth tusk. Yeah, definitely laying some mammoth tusk in. They're like, that needs some benzonite. That's not even a stone, that's clay. I've got clay on my face, so I'm just got clay on the mind now.
Clay on the face,
clay on the face.
Clay on the face,
So
clay
did
on
you
the mind.
do
The
a
title of the episode.
Did you do a little research before you put clay on your face, or?
A little bit, just a little bit. So for the folks that can see us and the folks that can't, I'll give a little, I'll explain this clay on the face thing. So I was living in the jungle in Mexico for almost 2 years, and near the tail end of it, I got a parasitical infection, a flesh-eating parasite, a single-celled protozoa found its way into my body by the means of a... Let's backtrack. All right.
Yeah.
In the jungles in Mexico. In the world. There is a giant deforestation effort on account of Train Maya, the railroad through the Yucatan. And due to this deforestation, an ancient evil has been unleashed. The ancient evil is carried by the vector of a sandfly, colloquially known as Mosca chiclera. The hosts of this parasite are mostly cats and dogs, and occasionally humans. More and more humans.
Oh, man.
I am one of these humans.
Holy smokes.
So this little sandfly, about a quarter the size of a mosquito, looks like a little, piece of dust in the air. Like I always say, like I wish it was a bear. We can be, honey, that bear's out there again. Let's go inside.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's like tiny little puff floating through the air. And then if you're lucky enough, like I was, then it's a female sandfly, and it's carrying this parasite. So I got really lucky. I got bit on the hand and on the face. So late January, I wake up and I've got what looks like a little spider bite on my face and on my hand. So I'm like, oh, it must have been a spider bit me. I brushed it away. It bit me again. We'll keep an eye on it. A month later, that thing is just growing. So I went to a doctor, and that's when I learned about Mosca chiclera.
Wow. They knew right away.
He said, because he had a few other cases earlier that day even.
Oh, God.
And he was like, yeah, we'll take you to the lab. It's called Leishmania, which sounds like leather daddy territory. I always say, like,
Leishmania.
this week only, Leishmania.
We might have to change the episode name.
Scratch
Holy
out
shit.
whatever clay on the face, clay on the mind. Leishmania. One night only. Leishmania unleashed.
Wow.
Yeah, so Leishmania or Leishmaniasis is like the infection of it that I had. Because then, it's like, okay, so I have it. So now what? He's like, well, it's a slow process. It turns out that the architect who built the place where I lived, a place called Qualia, he got there about 2 weeks ahead of me. He got one on his arm. But his was not as bad as mine. But he started with this Mayan remedy, which is these like leaves that are carbonized into ashes. And then you open the scab and you stuff it in there with some oil every day.
Ooh-wee.
And that's supposed to like cure it in 30 days. So I was hopeful. I'm like, yes, nature for the win. What an adventure.
Yeah.
5 weeks later, I'm like, yeah, that's not doing it.
Ain't going nowhere.
Ain't going nowhere. So then the other option was to go to the Centro de Salud in Tulum and get, so I lived like 20 minutes outside of Tulum in the jungle in this artist residency. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to go there and get these injections, this Western medicinal antimonies, these heavy metals injected.
When your face is getting eaten alive, you're like, I'll go towards Western medicine at
After
some point.
5 weeks of like, and
Come on.
my now ex-girlfriend and I out there for a little while, we were lysergically altering ourselves on a weekly basis.
We're lysergically altered right now.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Wow, I wouldn't even have guessed.
Or you would have known about an hour ago. We're like, let's cool it out. Anyway.
Well, anyway, so in that state, there were these moments where, while I was still stuffing it with Mayan ashes, where I'd like look at it and I'd be like, yeah, that's not looking good. Like these like really nice like Cronenbergian moments where it's like, I'm sorry that you guys are lysergically altered right now because
This is about to get vivid.
When you say Cronenberg, I just think of The Fly, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like,
Like, that's exactly it. It's that, but then there's also like the like existence. Like it looks kind of like I've got a bioport on my face right now. But yeah, so I'd look at it and I'd see, it's like that doesn't look very good. That's probably time to start thinking towards doing, the Western medicinal route. And I thought you just go in there. So I was like coming in with my somewhat Spanish speech prepared. Like, I'll just go in there and I'll be like, yeah, so maybe like next week would be a good time. And they're like, okay, first we're going to do a couple weeks of just like paper trail chasing. So a couple weeks went by of just like filling out forms. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready for it now. They're like, okay, so you're in the system and we'll let you know when the medicine arrives. And I was like, how long is that going to be? They're like, could be a few weeks.
What are we talking about?
I got.
Fucking
Yeah.
few weeks.
I'm getting eaten alive.
But the thing is, though, after a couple weeks, I'm like, hey, so it's been 2 weeks. Any news yet? They're like, yeah, no, we don't know. I mean, it could be months. We really don't know. It depends on the government, and it's case by case basis.
You're like, I'm going to America.
Well,
I don't know if it would have been much better.
America wouldn't even know that much about
Doubt
it. I
it,
mean,
'cause-
and the thing that they usually use here now that's FDA approved is a pill called Impavo, which costs like 17 grand.
It'll
Oh, God.
impoverish you.
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell?
Take the rish right off of that. Impavo rish. Yeah, so that didn't seem like an option. So I was just like, okay, I guess we'll wait it out. And it took about 5 weeks of waiting, and then finally it was my turn to get my intramuscular injections in the most muscular part of the body, the butt,
Wow.
during Pride Month. So 20 pricks in the butt during Pride Month. I feel like I
It's like you had rabies.
I mean,
my God.
that's also a thing apparently that goes around there. I learned about later, and there's all kinds of things apparently that still are abound. That like dengue fever and things like that.
Were you nervous about getting another bite while you were there?
Yeah. So that was the other thing. Like, this place had felt like home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what an ecosystem. Eco is home. So this was like I was at home in this ecosystem, and I had my partner, and she moved away back to Argentina, where she was from, in May, because one of the factors also was like she was afraid that she would get it as well, and so now it was just like me out there for the last couple of months, like waiting for the medicine and going through the treatment, and that feeling of like I don't feel safe outside, because
Yeah.
what if you get another
And it's
another
not the
one?
kind of place where you have windows, right? So it's like, why even is
Yeah,
it all
because they're just
outside?
not
Yeah, I mean,
glass.
there's like bug screens, but I mean, this thing could fly through. Like, there were nights, like I was very diligent about like killing every mosquito and flying thing, and I would collect them on a little piece of paper, and I had like at one day like 6 or 7 of these little mosca chiclera flies.
The ones
even.
that got you.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't mean that they're infected, but they
Vengeance.
were like around. Yeah, so I was just like, I'm gonna collect you guys. I'm gonna put their heads on the walls. You wouldn't be able to see it,
So
but
you
li-
war-
tiny
no, but
little
you
heads.
warned them because they
They'll
could
know.
smell each
They'll
other.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy's not fucking around.
Yeah, so that was crazy. But yeah, so after a month of daily intramuscular butt injections, it got vanquished from my body, but there was still like a lot of red around basically like I've got this crater in my face right now, and it's got like this inflammation around it, and they said, well, it takes like at least 2 months for the inflammation to go away, and it's been like almost 2 months, and it's just like got more inflamed, and I got like a secondary infection on the one on my hand.
Whoa.
That's why I'm like, you're taking a risk with this clay approach. Like, did you do research?
So yesterday I met somebody, and they were telling me to do. They gave me this clay mixed with castor oil, and they were like, you cannot go around like with these wounds exposed like that.
In New York City.
In New
Yeah,
York City,
yeah,
in
especially.
sunlight and stuff like that. And they were like, put this clay on there, sleep with it, just cover it in plastic, and then take it off the next day and put it back on. So last night I was like, okay, well let me, because the one on my hand was like not scabbing over, it was not looking good. So I was like, let me just try this clay approach, and I put it on last night, and then this morning I looked and I was like, oh, it actually looks a
Like,
lot better
it healed a
already.
little
It
bit.
healed a little bit.
Because clay
and-
dries it out, right?
Well, it also, from the little bit of research that I did on it, where I was like, is clay good on open wounds? And it's like, yeah, clay pulls out bacteria, toxins, infections, but it doesn't affect the healthy, what would you call
White
them?
cells or something?
Yeah, healthy flora or whatever,
Okay.
healthy
Yeah.
bacteria. And then it also, it insulates it from the air, and so it seems like she said like do it for a week, and that should like pull all the inflammation out of it. So I'm like, I want to believe these things. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
experimenting with my body, because that's also what Western medicine does.
Of course.
Like
It's the same thing.
my insurance is in California, so here I could only do like urgent care or emergency room. So I went to the urgent care, and they charged like $250 to tell me like, yeah, I don't really know, dude,
That
but
looks
here's something
sweet.
for the secondary infection. Maybe see infectious diseases or a dermatologist. And I was like, yeah, I don't have money for all those
Yeah.
things right now. So, and I'm about to go to Europe, so it'll be
Well,
a little
that's where
while
you go
before.
get treated.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, the Netherlands also is not. We looked it up yesterday. It's compulsory healthcare, which means that you have to buy healthcare, but they don't provide it for you. It's not like socialized like in France and places
really?
like that. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
But
Okay.
yeah, so now I'm walking around with clay on my face. That was a long detour, but that's how I kind of roll, you know.
No,
It's
thank you for sharing this
I've
story
got all
with
these little
us.
buttons, and you can press the clay button, and then you get the whole. That's not even the whole backstory, but that's the small arc of the parasitic
Dude,
life
it was
cycle.
enough when you told us that the other night. I was like, I'm glad we didn't go to Mexico. Like,
Yeah.
like we were always drawn there when you were down there. We were like, damn, that's a good time. You know, the weather up here is shitty. Like, we should go down to Mexico. And we were always like a week away from going down there. And for some reason or another, we didn't go. And then you told us this, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going. I've never been to Mexico, but it's.
We'll go to Mexico, but now we have to be very scared of little flies.
Go in armor, yeah.
We go in armor.
armored and-
the heck?
The thing is, like, it's not like everybody. Like I said, it's a lottery. You have to be real lucky to get it.
But this is you're like a warning case for deforestation and
That's one of the things that came out of it is this kind of like, and I did a whole podcast solo episode about it called Leishmaniasis, which I mentioned in there. It sounds like a Mars Volta album or something. It sounds so metal.
It does. Yeah.
But yeah, and I talk about kind of I look at it from different angles, from a pragmatic angle of somebody that's just trying to like heal themselves of it, but also like kind of the shamanic angle and like an ecological angle, which is, it's
like a wake-up call.
It is, and it's, this is the thing about like the ecological crisis is that we get so numbed by statistics and raw data that there's no emotional connection to it, or it feels like that's about other people or about down the line or something like that, whereas one of the first signs, even before, or maybe it was during my infection already, but it was already during it. At some point, like, we heard the dogs were barking outside our cabin, and we went out to investigate, and we're shining lights into the trees, and I'd see these little eye lights shining back at us from the trees, and these little shadow figures moving through the trees, which is like super trippy.
What the heck?
And then it's like the monkeys are back. Little spider monkeys were making their way because
Little
they
spider monkeys.
the tiny little spider monkeys are making their way across the jungle, for their habitat had become invaded. And not invaded by parasitic infestations, but infestations of humans. And, nature doesn't put up signs that say, don't do this or else. Nature puts up subliminal signs that say, fuck around and find out. And this is why we're imbued with intuition, but the modern world has just dried that stuff right up, folks. So the monkeys fled their habitats, made their way to us, and so it really started painting this picture. Oh, and like to go one chapter back from the infestation, the first time I heard about Leishmania was this little cat that had wandered in from the jungle, and he called himself Eo because that's all he said. He was like, Eo, Eo, Eo. So I called him Little Eo, and Little Eo be spitting. Like, that cat could sing, man. We put on some Mike Patton, Mondo Cane, and he would like sing along with that.
Damn.
Not word for word, but he definitely was like.
So he had some range, I guess. Yeah.
He was just the cutest little gremlin, like came out of the jungle, but he had these tumors on him that kept getting worse, and then. Again, Cronenberg, he was like a little Cronenbergian lawn sprinkler where he would like scratch them open and shake his head and like little paint splatters of blood and flesh would land on the wall. And I was like, this beautiful sanguine galaxy that this cat has so perfectly primed on the wall. What art, this nature. And then after a while it was like, because I had a connection with this cat, but it was also like kind of unsanitary, so... Rosa was my girlfriend out there, came up with the EO stick, which was this perfect stick that you could like touch him with a 10-foot pole and scratch him behind his ears and stuff. And he didn't care that it was not a human hand. He was just as happy. He just wanted to be scratched and get attention.
Wow.
But he was when he arrived, very PTSD, but also he's like, help me, stay the fuck away from me, help, get away from me. And after about a week, we kind of like won his trust, and, we'd feed him and he'd hang out. He became kind of part of the family, but he was a little leper, So I took him to the vet. Say, like, what is this? And then they were like, oh, well, this might be this thing called Leishmania. And if that's the case, then, we may have to put him down. So they did the tests. Turns out he was like riddled with Leishmania. And so they put him down. And they used his body for a necropsy to see if there's like get more research on it, because again, there's like not that much.
Some Pet Cemetery shit.
Yeah, well, I was thinking more like some Jesus stuff, It's like this special little guy will be the Messiah for humans and other animals.
Damn. Rest in power, Eo.
Yeah, exactly. Rest in power, Eo. So this is also like I consider myself a Bardo Bard, which is like a storyteller of liminal spaces. And so part of that is that things that don't have a voice, such as a parasite, want me to speak for it and spread the awareness. And similar also, like, I feel like people and creatures that I've known and connected with, such as Frankie Man Jungle Love,
R.I.P.
Little EO, or my own cat Fox, who died during the pandemic, which is another, like, one of those things. When EO came along, that's the first cat connection I had since then. But I had to let him go, and then like 6 months later or so is like I became infected with it. So I knew about it already. And it's possible that because EO was around, a sandfly drank of him and then got me, and it lay dormant. So there's that element as well. So it's like, you know, maybe it's my own damn fault for this goddamn compassion.
Well, this compassion, folks, will get you nowhere, but you want to care for the lepers, then you will end up a leper.
Well, do you think by being a compassionate guy, you almost invite some of this stuff in to be a voice for the voiceless, you know?
You gotta live it.
Did you choose this? Do you ever have you gone through that trip about all this?
I mean, I've accepted it.
Yeah.
That's certainly, that's a choice.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I could fight it more. It's like, when I came into this life, nobody ever told me that there wouldn't be flesh-eating parasitic infections. So I'm a very like improvisational being, you know. Like my worldview is very fluid. It's malleable, like clay, and so whatever new things come onto my path, I'm just going to have to adjust my worldview to include that into it. And I think a lot of people are much more rigid. So like something happens, and it's like, we'll exclude that from our worldview. Like, my mind is made up, you know? Like, don't confuse me with the facts.
Yeah.
So, did I choose it? Oh, actually, I have another answer to that question. I was going to say, did I choose it? No, but then it's like, in a way. So this is where it gets kind of trippy and what would you call it? Like, it's not, the word is not theoretical. It's not skeptical. That is not even the word. It's called speculative. It's very speculative.
Good word.
So how did I end up in the jungle? That's a good question. Well,
welcome to the jungle, baby.
Yeah.
Welcome to the jungle. We've got parasites.
So this pandemic, you guys remember that happened?
Kind of.
I heard about it.
Thing. It's like a little dark age fell over humanity.
Yeah, I was in a
Everybody-
nitrous cloud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very deep voice the whole time.
Oh,
Did you come out of it with helium to get yourself back in balance?
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Balance it out.
There we are. Perfect. The sweet spot.
Oh my God.
Yeah, during that time, I was living in Los Angeles, and my father lives in Florida, and he has Alzheimer's, which is the, forget about it disease.
Hey, forget about it.
Forget about it. You could say that again. So he, we usually get every 3 months, we get somebody from the Netherlands to come hang out with him, make sure that he drinks enough water, he eats well, he takes his pills, just kind of like a companion.
Who are these people?
They're usually, my sisters find them, it's usually women from the Netherlands who basically are offered like a 3-month vacation in this, like, they have like room and board and...
But there's one factor.
One factor, yeah.
Will they survive, my father?
Well, luckily my father is like a super gentleman and a super sweetie, and he's still like very funny and like an example of his humor. And this is like incidental humor, but it speaks to his character. When I was there before I came here to New York, so like a month ago, I took care of him for a couple weeks. And at some point I played this audio collage I made of jungle sounds because it's like soothing, I played it while I was making dinner, and then at some point he says, I find these lyrics very peculiar. Can you understand what he's saying? I'm like, these are frogs after a heavy rainfall, Dad.
Wow.
And another time I was like, so do you still know who I am? He said, of course I know who you are. So who am I? He goes, well, you're not the Queen of the Netherlands. I was like, that's true, but that's who I'm not. So who am I? He goes, well, I know who you are. You're the good boss of the population register. So I'm like, yeah, at least he knows who I am,
Wow.
It's like,
Damn.
he has, and I see this in myself, obviously. He's not afraid to put words together. And so if he doesn't know the answer to something, or he doesn't know how to. He can't admit that he doesn't know, or if in that moment it eludes him.
I love
he
these
will
kind of
just
people.
talk around it.
Yeah.
And like things like that. The good boss of the and it's in Dutch. You know, I'm like translating, but it sounds just as ridiculous. The
sounds
good
nice.
boss
Can
of
we
the
hear
population.
what it sounds like?
Okay, so that conversation would be like this. En, weet je nog wie ik ben? Ja, tuurlijk weet ik wie je bent. Je bent niet de koningin van Nederland. Dat klopt, maar dat is wie ik niet ben. Wie ben ik wel? Ja, jij bent de goede baas van het bevolkingsregister.
I could see this being a very moody film.
It could. I mean, I've thought of it as a film as well,
Definitely.
because when basically back to the beginning. So
Yeah,
my
yeah,
father
sorry.
lives there, and I put all my stuff in storage, and I went to
Mm.
take care of him because we couldn't bring anybody in from the Netherlands at that point, and the person that was there had to go home to her family. So I took care of him for 8 months. And
Whoa.
at some point in there was this moment where my sister called me. I was like doing the oil change for the car, and she called me and she says, I think our dad doesn't know that you're his son. And I was like, no, of course he knows. It's just probably when you're talking about me, it's like conceptual, it's in theory. So, but when I'm there, he definitely knows. And then I got home, and there was like this vibe, like there was something very emotional about him, and he was kind of like, you know, like kind of moving in his seat a little bit, and then he was kind of like circling me, and then he said, hey, something has been brought to my attention, that we are blood related. And I say, yeah, you just figured that out, huh? He goes, so you knew this already? I was like, yeah, I'm quite aware. He's like, so how long have you known this? I was like, about 38 years.
Oh my God.
And he goes, and who else knows this? Does your mother know? It's like, yeah, of course my mother knows. He's like, do the neighbors know? Or like, you know, does
Wow.
this person know? Does that person know? He's like, so everybody knew except me? I was like, now look around you. There's a reason there are pictures of me all over the walls, you know? Like, that's not a coincidence. You knew. It's just that you have Alzheimer's, and this brain fart is now making it seem like you never knew. He goes, oh, so you guys waited till I had Alzheimer's to spring this revelation
Oh
on
my
me.
God. Wow.
So it was such a trippy thing. It was this thing of like, apples. I've had apples, but they come from trees? Like, I would have never
Wow.
knew that they came from trees. That's, he was tripping.
So he's going childlike almost. It's
In
like
s- in
the
some-
childlike wonder about
It's-
things.
I mean, your disposition is so important when entering a phase of Alzheimer's, and it sounds like very lucky for your family. He's got a
He's got a sense of humor, and he's
Sense
just
of
good-natured. And he's like, well, I'm happy. Welcome to the family. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
But imagine if it wasn't like that. That's such a scary thing to not know things or
Yeah.
feel like people are maybe
Yeah.
pulling tricks on you.
so it
or-
really, like, so much of it, I mean, you guys know this as
Mm.
psychedelic people, so much of it is about energy exchanges.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like even now, like as he's further down that road, and he'll like schmooze an hour in the wind without making any sense really, or having any grounding to what he's saying. You just kind of like, you don't, one of the quote unquote rules is kind of like, you don't try to counter speak or try to adjust them. It's
Mhm.
more like a matter of letting them do their say and listening, and like
Yes,
just-
and
yeah, exactly. Just like positive energy exchange, because that's what he's feeling, and then it also feels again like he's seen. Like everybody just wants to be
Yeah,
seen and heard
yeah.
and accepted and acknowledged. So,
Wow.
but yeah, so I did that for 8 months in his neurodegenerative memory palace, and it was like, before I moved to LA, I was living in San Francisco, and I had a very socially supported ego, you know?
Mm.
I lived in this artist collective in an old convent with 23 people, and there was always, like, people knew me by reputation, and so I wanted to challenge that by going to LA and, what remains of me without that, without the scaffolding?
Yeah.
Not much, apparently. I was terrified of LA, so I moved to a place I feared, to live in fear, and you literally, like, I lined up and signed up to be nobody at Central Casting, to be like an extra.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
later I got a gig as somebody's double, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm still not somebody, but I'm somebody's double. I
Mm.
kind of looked like the guy from Lethal Weapon, so I got to be his photo double for that
Wow.
show.
Oh my God.
But so now, like, being in Miami, taking care of my dad, and then it was like, I'm almost, my transformation into nobody is almost complete. Like, even my
Mm.
father doesn't remember me.
Wow.
wow, yeah.
I went back to, like, a pawn shop I worked in the early 2000s, and, like, the people working there, like, they weren't even born by the time I was working there, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, they didn't know, and they didn't care about stories I had to tell. So it was, like, really, like, I felt like I was being erased. So it's like a slow ego death, you know?
Mm.
Wow.
So after 8 months, of going through that, I was like ready to go back to California and look for home. I had my car there. I got in my car. I drove up and down the West Coast looking for home, visiting homies, and I couldn't find it. Like I definitely like got reinvigorated. I bought a new camera. I got back into my love for filmmaking and did some music videos on the road, and like it became, as much as it was looking for home, it was also like the great American location scout, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with, because that's how you operate.
Yeah.
Right? You just go around and
It's constant.
you know those moments when you're kind of like pixie led to a location and just like a cosmic spotlight shines on a little spot, and then you're just like, oh, that's naturally lit right now. Like, quick, get in that spot, let's shoot it.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Like stuff like that. That's kind of how I was operating. And then our mutual friend Alexa Castle, who had heard me on Ramin Nazer, our mutual friend Ramin Nazer's podcast.
That's how you know Alexa?
So she heard me on Ramin.
Shout out to Alexa.
Yeah.
Sweet, sexy clown girl. Oh, my God.
9 lambs. Miss 9 lambs.
Yeah.
So she reached out to me. She struck through the screen of podcast, the fourth wall of the podcast world, and she was like, "Hey, you seem awesome. I'm going to be in LA in a few weeks. You want to like meet up?" So I met up with her, and we got along swimmingly. She like gave me some poetry recommendations of Rilke, who I always liked, but I'd never read any of his books. So she was like, Dueno Elegies, read Dueno Elegies.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And then, like, I really liked hanging out with her, and she was dating Malcolm. I don't know if you guys ever met Malcolm.
Yeah.
We knew him as Peter.
We knew Miss Peter. We
Really?
gave him his first dose of acid.
No. Really?
Shh, bleep that out.
Yeah, you didn't hear that. That stays with us. Anyway.
He's been in Nepal ever since.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and I can see the the timeline of events. That's right.
Yeah.
You guys have played such a role in so many
We're behind the scenes.
small transformation. Yeah, you guys are very much like the your own brand of machine elf or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I like invited her and Malcolm back to my place to have tea there because I wanted to like meet him and hang out with him some more. And we kept in touch after that. We just became friends. And
Wow.
then during this time where I was searching for home, she put an Instagram story up like, "Hey, who wants to come live for free in the jungle in a snail-shaped house to make art?"
Yeah.
And I've got this thing with snails. I wrote a story in 2004 called the Eternal Snail Convention that I just share in the oratory storytelling tradition when it's prompted, and every time I have something magical happens. And for like the 100th time, I was trying my hand at making snail illustrations for it, which is a very slow process. So I was drawing snails when this thing came in, this invitation, and I was like, I don't know about Mexico, but I should go check it out. And so in preparation, I decided a friend I was staying with, I wanted to do some mushrooms on the full moon to kind of like get myself ready for the trip, get my feelers out. But my set and setting was way off. First of all, the day I arrived, I thought I had another day to prepare, and it's like, nope, this is the full moon. Let's do it tonight. And then I like ate a big meal. I was just like I was not preparing myself properly. And what happened was, in my mind's eye that night, I was visited by this one thing that was like almost like you remember those pogs, those little little circular emblems?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it was something like that with this like lion head on it that was like moving towards me, like. But at the same time, in the sidelines, there was something else moving around. So it felt like this was like a deflection that was happening, and there was something else. And my interpretation of this now is kind of trippy. I'll tell you in a second. What I saw in the sidelines was this little drone, and the word drone is like threefold. It's like it's a drone, as in like a surveillance drone. It's a drone, as in that it was like an insect, like a bee or something like that, and also like a drone, like a. So it was this pulsing surveillance insect spirit, which I've encountered in like ayahuasca experiences before, and it always gives this feeling of like your defenses are being penetrated. It is seeing right through you. It has like, even its head, it had many eyes, and it had this almost like crystal ball for a brain that was just like it was like looking right through me. It's seeing all my vulnerabilities, reflecting them back at me. And as I saw it, it basically like slinked away like a burglar that's just been caught. And it terrified me, man. I was just like, I didn't feel safe. I'm like, I'm going to Mexico. Like, what am I going to be predated upon? Am I going to be robbed? Am I like, what is waiting for me out there? Because I'm really into this school of thought that's about retrocausation and precognition, the idea that the future influences the present or influences the past even.
Yeah.
So I'm always finding different techniques through which to capture these kind of prophetic dimensions. And in this case, I was literally divining for what's up ahead, and what I got terrified me.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm too stubborn to listen most of the time.
Well, it's a lot of time it is terrifying.
Yeah, and the thing, because it's also, it's just beyond this event horizon of transformation, you know, of like going to into the unknown and what will become of you. So even whatever it is, it's going to be terrifying. But
Yeah.
and what you're saying, like you're too stubborn to listen. The idea with precognitive intel is that, I mean, listening is one thing, but it's not like you can do anything about it, because
Yeah, because you got that big reaction because it's going to be a big experience.
yeah, and it's not like some people have this kind of like multiverse interpretation where they're like, oh well, you see it so you can avoid it, but it's like it doesn't work like that. You see it because it's a time loop that you have to close through the happening of it.
Oh my god.
And this one, it ended up being like a threefold fear bubble that like came into fruition. It's like I needed to confront these things.
Wow.
The first tier of it was when I arrived in Mexico. So I had like a week after that I could prepare and like get my energy straight. So the first thing I did is I designed this like super colorful outfit that's kind of like the style of the alebrijes of Mexico, which are these colorful hybridized creatures with psychedelic patterns. So I like made this outfit that I designed, and then it was kind of the idea with this like thought helmet with this like, you know, second sight visor or something, and the joke was like, you know, to dress like the locals, to fit in with the locals, you know, so that I won't stand out. And this thing obviously is like, it's like a circus tent, you know, that you wear out. So when I got to Mexico, I got off the plane, I got on the bus, I got to Tulum, and Alexa met up with me there to pick me up and take me to the snail house. When I got there, just the air was charged with this like cultural magic, this tangible magic, and I was like, what is this warm, welcoming embrace? Like there is something really feels really good about this that I wasn't expecting to feel this way. And then when she took me to the house, like first of all, this house is this piece of surreal architecture, and at night the door was open, the lights were on inside. I could see some like phantoms weaving past of the people inside, including the guy she was dating at the time, this artist named Josue Ricardo, or Richie, who is still a good friend of mine. He was just in New York too. Amazing artist and just like magic-minded, like-minded individual. And it turns out, I told him about that outfit. You know, I was like, yeah, I'm making this like alebrije outfit. And he's like, bro, I make alebrijes.
What?
And he's like, and I've been working on this idea of alebrijear, which is like, alebrije is a verb, like what alebrije clothing and things like that. So it was like, okay.
Whoa.
I realized I had arrived in a place that felt like home, like with kindred spirits and things like that. And I laughed in that moment because I was like, oh, the drone. It was me sending a message back to myself to let myself know that I was safe, that I made it. It's like, hey, you're in a different place. You don't know nothing about this yet, but it's safe. And in my mind's eye, this is like this terrible angel. And, be not afraid. All is well. And I'm like, get the fuck away from me. But then also, I mean, the obvious... because it had like 3 arcs. Like another arc was that we got robbed at some point. Like the house got broken into, a bunch of things got stolen. I tracked them down. Then Wesley bribed some cops. We set up a sting operation. We brought them to justice.
Wow.
Which I've told the whole story in detail on Ramin's podcast. So if anybody wants
Check
to
that out.
like dive into that.
Rainbow Brain Skull.
Rainbow Brain Skull.
Yeah.
But so like that idea of like being robbed, that was also like worked into that already. But, like, we caught them. We brought them down.
Damn.
Turns out they had, like, a missing passport, a bunch of guns. It's like, we brought down some hitters, you know?
Wow.
But so, again, it was this triumph of, like, I stepped into the fear. I overcame it. But now that I'm looking back at it, too, like, obviously also the insect, the thing of it is also, like, the mosca chiclera, you know? Was, like, worked into that. And just now I realized that, like, the lion on the pog coming at me, that could have been little Eo, you know?
That's what I was just going to say.
It's like the cat is like distracting, and in the meantime this little thing is coming in to get me. So it was like, did I ask for it? Was it my choice? In some way, I guess this is like me communicating through time, which is ultimately it's you orienting yourself through time to get you to safety. So I trust that there's a conclusion to this whole epoch which ends in me being healthy and healed with this information to share and new experiences, and also like having kind of struck through the mask of my fears, which right now I'm very much about like fearful fates and fateful fears, like this idea of like allying with fear.
Yeah.
Which also, I'm sorry, I'm like ranting a lot.
No,
now.
but that's a
no,
good
this
title too. Fearful fates and fateful fears.
We're through chapters for this episode.
yeah.
There was like my earliest explorations in art, when I think back at it, is it feels like it's a very surreal memory, but I used to, as a child in the dark at night, I would be visited by wolves and bats. Like there would be like, we still good?
Yeah, Kaz is just gonna. Oh.
And now chapter 2.
Honestly, it's been so great. I just had this moment where I'm like, fearful fates. I just need
She's
to
a
make sure
little
we're
high.
still
She's a
recording.
little
Chapter 2. Fearful fates and fateful fears. So when I was a child, I would have wolves and bats that came to me like these hallucinatory comets streaking through the dark and then like dissolving upon impact, Wolves, bats, fangs, like the wolves were kind of like the wolf man in a way, like the Lon Chaney, the little teeth poking out, hairy face, striking white eyes, and then these bats also with like fangs, just like terrifying childhood terrors.
Wow. Damn.
And I told my mother about this, and she saw some children's book, and she came up with this idea. She's like, why don't you draw them? And looking back at it, like, this is my art. It's like dream catching. It's like ghostbusting, that kind of thing,
We're here. We're surrounded by your art. It's all over this place.
It's so
over our
beautiful.
it's over our heads.
Yeah.
It's too far away to see closely because they're little portals. You have to get up close.
Yeah.
And activate your inner microscopic kaleidoscope.
Mm.
But yeah, so she came up with this idea to draw my fears. So I drew these very crude little wolves and bats with fangs, and then we tied them to balloons, and we were going to release them. It's like a very
That's a
witchy,
really,
shamanic
I like
idea.
This,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like we didn't have helium balloons, so they just kind of like fell to the ground, and then a gust of wind would drag them across the gravel. And then we hid behind a little wall as these two teenage girls arrived on bicycles and got off their bicycles and inspected these balloons and these drawings. And then my mother turned to me and was like, see, now they're going to get them. And I don't understand the morality, so I'm like, hey, no wolves, no bats for me tonight. Sounds great.
Just pass it on.
That sounds like some Netherlands shit or something.
It really is, because there's this,
Yeah.
I always say there's this Dutch nursery rhyme for the hiccups that goes like this. And sing along if you know this one, folks.
Join in.
Hikke, sprikke, sprouw. Ik geef de hik aan jou. Ik geef de hik aan anderman, die de hik verdragen kan. Which the first part is jabberwock for hiccups, hikke, sprikke, sprouw, and then it rhymes and it goes, I give the hiccups to you. I give the hiccups to someone else whom can endure the hiccups. So it's like, I can't handle it. Oh, wolves and bats in the dark, I put them on balloons. I give them to somebody else who can endure them.
Oh my god.
But here's the twist. Some friends of my sister arrived at our door later that evening, and they brought gifts for her little brother. They brought balloons with wolves and bats stuck to them. So that's like the idea of
It
like
got passed back.
my ally my fears. Like, these are your shadows. Like,
Yeah.
sew them to your feet, Peter Pan, from the Netherlands, the Netherlands. So,
Wow.
so that's been like a big theme for me, especially in the last year, is just like stepping into fears and overcoming them and allying them,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were just talking before this, how like we're the same age. I feel like this is just the first age I'm getting to in my 40s now, where I'm like, I can do that. I have enough data points. I can look how things have worked out in the past and
Yeah.
what avoiding stuff has done for me or not done for me. And fuck it, I'm here for the adventure now.
I like your style because I feel like you're an in and through kind of person, and I think we can relate to that.
Yeah.
And the precognition thing, I really appreciate you putting that into words, because the idea is like you do feel, because so many times I've felt something coming on and I don't do anything to avoid it, but it also feels like I can't do anything to avoid it. And then I try to think exactly what you're saying. If I had even had the capacity to do the thing to avoid it, I wouldn't have felt as big of an energy about it in the first place.
Yeah, what would you change? I think about that all the time.
Even that, like a change or a choice, there's this hubris around it, like we know something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we know more about how things are to unfold
Yeah.
that we can avoid. Like, okay, so let's say I avoided having my shit stolen, which it got stolen a second time, which humbled me from the whole like, hi, see, I'm victorious, you know. And then it was like, okay, I just gotta take an L sometimes.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, like if I had avoided that, if I had been so afraid of this thing that I canceled my trip to Mexico, like I wouldn't be here sitting with you guys right now. Like I wouldn't have this art show up right now. I wouldn't have so many wonderful, so many friends, so many wonderful experiences.
There's a lot to appreciate in the darkest times, and a lot to having that perspective, because it's here. You might as well appreciate it.
There's you know, the Werner Herzog, speaking of documentary filmmakers, he has a quote that I often bring about, which is the poet must not avert his gaze.
Yes.
He must look at the beautiful as well as the ugly.
Yep.
And I'm very much of that school where, you know, I saw you wincing earlier with the Cronenbergian stuff, but it's like, I mean, to wince, that's fine. Like, that's going to happen. It's just like, all right. But we still got to accept that there are these realities for ourselves and for others. And like you said, in and through.
Well, and there's no, like, the border between Mexico and the States is an imaginary border. I mean, these flies are coming for all of us, you know.
Yeah, and the border between, you know, where my body ends and the ecosystem takes over has been very clearly penetrated.
Do you have any thoughts on what happened? Because you just are covered in clay. And do you have any thoughts on Burning Man? I know you probably...
Yeah, I mean, I went 7 years in a row, and I haven't been in 10 years and haven't felt called to. Like, after those 7 years, when all of San Francisco drained out to the playa, because, you know, San Francisco, it's kind of like the center of the decentralized circus.
Yeah.
Everybody, like, left town, so I took that time to, like, write a piece. It's called This Little Spine of Mine and Other Tales from the Final Destination, which are, like, my 7 years of Burning Man congealed, distilled into this, like, potion of vignettes.
Awesome.
And writing that, I was like, I like writing and thinking about Burning Man more than I actually liked being there.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Like, there's something about having our experiences and then being able to distill them and take the best of it out of that.
Mm-hmm.
I also was not one of those people that was like, came to Burning Man and was like, my eyes were open, like, wow, life as art.
What
an idea.
You're like, I'm living this shit.
I was living it, and this was just like an extension of it.
Mm.
But I had also lost I had done 2 big murals 2 years in a row, and each of them were painted over by the people I had commissioned them for due to, like, miscommunications or all kinds of petty little interpersonal plays. And so I was also meditating on this idea of, like, the sand mandala or creating something impermanent. So Burning Man did offer, like, a balm in that sense of, like, here we build a city that will be destroyed at the end of the week. Everything here is ephemeral. So there was that appeal to it. But I mean, as far as what's happening now, I'm guessing you're asking ecologically, right? Like,
well, yeah, because I feel like the way you're having this, I feel like that's what I saw when I saw this all happen, you know, the rains and how it affected, you know, this decentralized, whatever. I don't have the words that you have for everything, but just kind of being like, oh, is this the wake-up call? And will this wake-up call be received and channeled?
What I'm seeing just peripherally is that there are a lot of people that I think that are there that are, like, stepping up to the challenge, and they're like, this has been the most rewarding burn ever. I can't wait for next year. Like, we're so prepared. We're so self-reliant and radical. And then there's the other school of thought, which is like, yeah, maybe just like, maybe we don't need to do this anymore. Like, maybe instead we can take all those resources and do, like, Habitats for Humanity builds. My friend Nathan, do you guys know Nathanology? Nathan before Oglesby? I'll have to connect you guys.
Please.
He's good friends with Alexa and Wes and that whole House of Yes kind of crew. He's this professor of classics who is a rap educating philosopher. Just like this brilliant dude. He just put up this little video where he's talking about kind of like, you know, instead of maybe building this temple this year, we could take that money and those resources to build houses for Habitats for Humanity or something. But then he also, like, beautifully balances it with this idea of, like, yeah, but
we'll take Molly while we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We still can feel good. We can still be a celebration. But then, of course, there's, like, the idea of, but the temple, that's obviously, it's art. It's not just, like, a functional structure. But, you know, I think it's a conversation that just needs to be had at this point of, like, what are we putting our resources towards? Like, I think the reality, just like for me, the reality of the parasitic realities, just like that, like the reality of climate change and taking things more seriously. It can still be a party or a celebration.
Totally.
It's just like
Absolutely.
less, maybe less. I don't know. I don't even know how to say less contained, or more contained, or less scattered, more united.
I agree. I mean, I think that's when you start winning people like us over. It's like, if it's a party, we're down to do it. Like, like it's the self-seriousness and the preachy and all that stuff that I'm like,
I just
you're
don't like the
losing
music,
people.
honestly.
Yeah, I wish we liked that music a little bit.
You guys
more.
have been then, I imagine.
No.
I'm just saying, anytime I see videos coming out of it, I'm like, I would kill myself.
We were-
you know, just
we
even
were-
just
I
this
hear you, man.
auditory experience.
It's
you
too
can't get
much.
away from it. Even if you're in the deep playa, there's still a
Yeah, it's not to me.
in the distance, you know.
I want to see punkers with saws. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Hold on, that's a good time for the flute.
Yeah.
Come on.
You're listening to Very Ape with Sean and Cass with the Ungoogleable Michaelangelo.
Church of Chill. Yeah, if there was no amplified music there and just that was
Yeah.
allowed, like, hey, you can
Well,
get your vibes.
That's
I
what
would be
that's
there.
what I felt a lot of times. Like I want to hear like
Yeah, the
This
subtle
do-
plane.
It doesn't stand a chance against these big sounds, and I feel the same way in like ayahuasca ceremonial settings. There are sounds that play on the silence, like a harp, a human voice, things like this. It's like it just accentuates the silence, whereas like drums will scare it away.
Yes.
Somebody rocking on a guitar will just scare the silence away, but
Yeah.
something like
Oh yeah.
gives you a texture to like think and feel on. And similarly, I feel that way about, I mean, you can say silence can be replaced with mystery. Like we're not trying to solve the mystery, we're trying to serve the mystery. You want to just
Yes.
like find different ways that accentuate it. Like you don't want some theory, like a precognition theory. It's not trying to like explain anything away. If anything, it adds another layer of mystery. It's like, hey, here's a way to orient yourself through time retroactively.
Yeah.
You just have to like reframe your whole worldview to accommodate that. But
we do it all the time in the way of like, you know, hey, let's send some love back to like the confused teenage version
That's
of
it,
myself
man.
that like,
that's it.
like I don't know why I decided like at 16 years old, like I'm going to be a filmmaker. And like I had no connections. My family has no money. I could barely go to college. And I was like, I'm going to be a filmmaker. I'm going to be a filmmaker. And all I can think is that was me now sending back a message to that dude, like just stick with it. And I never questioned it.
Yeah.
And it's so weird because it's such a hard thing to do. And I hear people like, oh, I wish I could do that. I want to do that. And I'm like, why me? You know? And I think it's playing with that stuff. So I'm always sending like strength back to that little fucker and creativity and inspiration and all that. And then we try to send messages out to our future self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's very much it, and it seems like this weird paradox. But the guy who, for me, is kind of like the leading thinker in the realms of precognition is this guy Eric Wargo, who I've had on my show as well, and he speaks of a self-consistent universe. So it's exactly that. Like, why did you decide to become a filmmaker? It's because you became a filmmaker,
Yeah.
and that held itself accountable
Yeah.
in a retrograde fashion to make that happen, to like past and future like shook hands in the present, where this was, you know, this arrangement was,
And it was the only thing that made me feel at home in this universe. Like as a teenage boy with a drug-addicted father and just insane fucking insanity. Just my sister having seizures, just pure insanity. Like that was like the one concept that like held me together. And
did you do documentaries about that on the slide? Did
No,
Not yet.
I filmed the
not
seizures.
Yet, not yet, but I'm thinking about doing it because it is such a unique, trippy, wild thing to bear witness to. And I do think my sister Caitlin, who's turning 36, and like really just she never leaves the house. Like she can barely do anything.
Very sweet though, and kind of like what you were saying with your dad. Like
Same thing.
The same, like the other, like I went to we've played Tic Tac Toe sometimes.
Yeah.
And we were out to lunch, and I got to play Tic Tac Toe, and I handed it over to her to like make a mark, and she just played herself
played
in
the
Tic
whole
Tac
game.
Toe, and I was like, oh, you,
And she was like, yeah, you know,
I tried.
I tried.
And
And like she's so funny and tapped in and like doesn't operate like anyone else, but like has so much to offer if you
Yeah.
can, but you really, really, really have to slow down and meet her on her level. And
That's it.
like you were saying with your dad, and really it applies anywhere. And Caitlin, my sister, has allowed me to tune my aura to this. Is like she only responds to the energy. Like that's it. She doesn't care what we're saying. She doesn't understand what we're saying. She responds to our energy. So I always try to, with everyone, meet them with that, because I think everyone's doing it on some way. But when you're with someone with Alzheimer's or who's very old or who has a disability or is autistic or something, you really have to show up in a certain way, and you can
Right.
get a good reflection back. And yeah, it's helped me, I think, because I think it just helps me navigate. Because a lot of times with our documentary subjects, we're meeting them and we're filming them, and it's happening right then and there, and I want to pull the best out of them. So I literally just have to show up as an open, best version of myself, and that's what gets reflected back. And
That's beautiful, because you become, as the filmmaker, you become the container that holds
yeah,
their energy. And like,
yeah,
yeah. And then again, there's also like a precognitive ghost-busting quality to that, you know, because these
Yeah.
people have something they want to share that they're keeping inside, that they're waiting for, like the
Yeah.
the right kind of silly putty to like extract that from them,
Yeah.
or the right kind of clay to pull
Yes.
the
yeah. That's what we are. We're the clay,
You're
and
the
it just
clay.
pulls it out.
clay
When
by
y-
the Church of Clay.
When you were like, oh, these magic moments happen where you end up in a beam of light, I felt that coming here. Like, you invited us to this show you were doing, and when I came here, I was like, whoa, like, thank God we came, because this
Yeah.
is like, there's a
Oh,
beam
we
of light.
spent the rest of
on-
that night just being like, thank God we did that. And I feel like if
Yes.
we still lived in the city,
we
we
got a
wouldn't have
lot
done
of
it.
numbers for people that were
Yeah.
going to, like, have, I mean, DJ preschool right there.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
And
Yeah, we got so many phone numbers. Like I was like, we made friends with everyone in there,
Yeah.
and like.
So where we are right now, again, for,
Yeah.
Yeah,
for the
please.
people back at home. So this is the Athenaeum, which is the physical space for the psychedelic assembly. The Athenaeum is the world's first. Like, I have to do this in the McKenna voice, because
Please,
Yeah,
yeah.
they
please.
basically commissioned me to do their promo video to write and narrate it as McKenna. So
This is the Athenaeum, the world's first psychedelic library, social club, and event space in the heart of midtown Manhattan.
and it's female run. Female run, is that how you say it? It's run by female.
Yeah.
Female run
woman,
sounds like
woman run.
Roman one. It's
I don't- I
woman
don't-
run.
Yes.
Woman run,
X
man.
chromosome.
Yeah.
Woman run from man running after woman. Man with club join social club. Woman with social club. Anyway, yeah. So this is a really magical, beautiful social space with lots of, you know. Right now it's got my art on display for like
beautiful.
for the rest of the month, and then this used to be kind of like a little Alice in Wonderland museum. So Mike,
It pretty
who-
much still is.
yeah, it still is, but he has a lot more Alice
Oh, yeah.
paraphernalia hidden away. Like that whole bookcase right there is full of translations of Alice in Wonderland in different languages.
Wow.
But yeah, so this woman, Kat, and her friend Susie started this together. Susie is right now on the road with Shane Moss, who you probably haven't met or know.
Yeah.
And so Kat is just running this space, or it's kind of running itself too in a lot of ways. She's pulling all the strings behind the wiring behind the board, and yeah, it's been for this last month in New York just like such a beautiful place to call a home away from home, and met so many wonderful people, and been
Yeah.
able to call in wonderful people like yourselves to try and continue, you know, connecting those dots and create this hub for synchronistic interactions, because
Well,
that's what it becomes in a way.
Fucking
you know?
awesome.
Yeah, it reminded me of the power of being like rich in relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Like we've been saying lately that we're rich in ideas, you know?
Yeah.
Like we might not have a lot of money, but we're rich in ideas. And then I felt like leaving, I was like, oh, and remembering the value of being rich in relationship, you know? People who fulfill your soul and spirit, and
Mhm.
quest for wonder, and
Just also like coming to a place where every person is the others. It's like, you know, we're always like, we got to go find the others. And you come to a place like this and you're like, wow, it's low key. It's not Burning Man. It's not loud. It's not intense. It's
Exactly.
not attention seeking. It's just like everyone that's chilling here is on the same vibration as
Yeah.
you. So we were just felt free to walk up to anyone and be like, hey, we're Sean and Cass.
It's
Fucking
also the
awesome.
fact that it's a library already kind of primes that idea of
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, don't wake up the ideas.
and then there's also the kind of like neurodivergent angle where they wanted to create this space where it's friendly for people who are on the spectrum, for instance, where
Mm.
it's like first of all, there's less of a separation between like the performer and the audience, so that it's like everybody is more approachable, and that it isn't overwhelming and overstimulating, but that it's really like a place for connection, and for community. And the relationship richness, I can very much relate to that, and that's its own ecosystem where different relations fuel and feed and fire each other up, you know, like neurons shooting from one to the other. I have this Italian magician friend, Ferdinando Buscema, who lives in Italy. An Italian in Italy? Unbelievable. And he knew that I was in New York, and he hit me up, and he goes, there's this, like the world's greatest magician at this time, like the greatest magic show at this time is happening in Manhattan. Like they built this little set for it, and it was supposed to be there for a month, and it's got extended. He's like, I'm thinking of taking a trip out there to see it, but just in case I don't make it, I want to make sure that you get to go and see it, so I got you a ticket. So he got me this, like, basically the setup is this round table at the center, and then there's like this like audience built around it. He got me a ticket at the round table right across from the Mentalist.
Wow.
And it was just like an amazing experience. So like, like I'm not I'm not very rich, but I've got like amazing friends and patrons and people looking out for me that like want me to go have amazing experiences so that I can tell them about it, you know?
See, I mean,
and I'm like so grateful for that, for those kinds of...
Me too. It's so weird too, because like we used to be rich in money from our commercials and stuff, and the pandemic just fucked up our whole life. And so there was this floaty period where we were using a lot of ketamine and nitrous to just check out and not think about how we're not self-sustaining. But little did we know that this whole time we were building up a community and that we could rely on them. And I'm not even talking about financially, like literally like these are our friends. So like a lot of people are like, whoa, you guys don't have a retirement, you're not planning this and that. I'm like, could you go anywhere in the world and get put up by people? Could you, you know, rely on your backlog of art to, you know, have goodwill with people wherever you go? Like that's what I feel like we're doing. And I feel like now we have people cheering us on, like, go have those experiences, get out there, do it, tell us about it. You know, if we can't do it, I want to hear about it.
How was the Mentalist?
He was amazing. Like there's so many things in there where I had no idea how he did what he did. You know, there's some of it, he's obviously in control of the room, in control of the deck. There's also things where he's pulling information out where you're like, how are they doing this? So in the end, walking out of it, like knowing that there is an explanation for all of it. Like there's obviously like a science and a method to what he's doing, but what I walk away from is just like how the blind spots in the mind, how easily we are deceived and are deflected away from something that's going on, like how these guys could have been like the world's greatest pickpockets, but decided to turn it, thank goodness, into like also for them much more lucrative endeavor. But yeah, just like walking, it was by Washington Square Park, so as soon as I walked out and walked through that park, I just had that like kind of like widescreen vision of like looking at everything and how everybody's working and trying to pick out like the different ways that just the blind spots in our perception.
That we can be hypnotized, and that people can get us to think a certain thing or feel a certain thing or know a certain thing about us based on how we respond. We went to a magician who, there was a woman in front of us. He was like, you're wearing white underwear and you have Tupperware in your bag. And it was just like, she did, you know, it was both of those things.
It was crazy because she was like in front of us online. It was like she couldn't be a plant. Like like we couldn't wrap our head around. Like even the woman who was sitting right in front of us, she was like, "What the fuck?" She was like, "Yeah, I have Tupperware in my bag," and she was wearing white underwear. It was bizarre.
So this is what's interesting too. This is again like on the precognition train. So this person couldn't have known that you had white underwear in Tupperware, but because after she said it, you showed it and confirmed it, it closed that time loop, which made it so that she knew because you were going to show her.
Wow.
So like I did this other gig. So I put on this art show and I did this presentation where I was talking about the ideas and adventures behind the art, which is a lot of this kind of thought stream. And the artwork itself is, I use the technique called pareidolia, which is like when you see the faces in the clouds. It's the tendency of perception to find meaningful patterns in random stimuli. So like I'll start with a chaotic priming or just some watercolor, or it could be a stain on the street, and then I'll pull the forms I see from that. which is also in effect a kind of like, all creation is prophetic in that sense.
Yeah.
Like even now, like words are coming out. I don't know exactly how they're going to assemble. I'm just going to trust they're going to find their the train of thought is going to create a track ahead of itself. So from all these fascinations and thoughts and activities and practices, I've kind of pulled together this worldview that I'm like trying to insert in different ways. So the city itself becomes an oracle. Like the city thinks along. Like I'm working out a thought, and then there's various things around me when I put my attention to them and describe them that correspond to that. I can steal thoughts from the city in order to write my story. And so I got this gig at House of Yes, where there was a Curiouser and Curiouser Alice in Wonderland themed party, which is fitting because I'm like, also, I'm sorry, I'm going like all these branching off, but it all comes together. The fact that this place, the Athenaeum, is at, and I'm not a numbers person, but this one is just too fun, is at 222 46th Street. And then the after party for my show was at my friend's place, which is in the Chelsea Hotel in the storied room where Janis Joplin blew Leonard Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
Second most notorious blowjob in history.
Yeah.
The first being Bill Clinton, of course.
Yeah.
That's at 222 23rd Street. So there was already this like 222, and then you break 46 in half, you get 23rd. So that was interesting to me. And this somehow plays into whatever I was talking about.
You were talking about House of Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, so I did, so the Curiouser and Curiouser here, I'm at this Alice in Wonderland place, and there's this Alice in Wonderland party, and they wanted me to do like tea service. So, of course, Mad Hatter, right? And I'm already walking around with this Mad Colombian hat, which is also a flag for any Colombian in the city to reach out and start talking to me. And I've met like so many wonderful Colombian families.
Wow.
My brother-in-law is Colombian, so my sister gave me the hat to shield my lesions from the sun, and then it's become another kind of like beacon for synchronicity. So anyway, Mad Hatter, I'm already a Mad Hatter. Tea party, I'm like, well, I'm just going to do tea leaf readings, because that's, again, pareidolia. It's just like I look into the cup, whatever I see, I will speak, and then whatever I speak, maybe the person sitting there has some connection to that, and we have a conversation around that. Then I'm going to mine the colors of the conversation. I'm going to do an archetype writer poem. I'm going to type it out, and that's going to be my blessing, my spell that I give to them. And this was, like, really well received. People were very generous. It's like a really beautiful gig that I want to expand. I want to like find more places to do this at. This is like a vehicle for me, But some of these were so uncanny. And again, it's like I've created basically precogs in a teacup. I've created a space at the table for synchronicity to happen and for time loops to close. And most of the times when people come to see like an oracle or a medium or a psychic, I'm using air quotes here because I'm more on the oracle side of things, they're in a space of transience, We're always in a space of transience, but a lot of times it's people, they're moving, they're traveling, they're, trying to figure out their relationship, whatever it is. And that opens up this trickster territory where these things, like through my confidence, that's what a con artist is, right? A confidence artist. Through my confidence and my artistry, I'm able to just like speak what I see. And sometimes it's like weird. So my favorite one was this couple. Two people, and I said, you guys want to do a reading together? Are you a couple? And they're like, look at each other. They're like, are we? We're kind of trying to figure that out.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, all right, well, have a seat. Let's take a look at it. And I look in the cup, and the leaves arrange themselves and look kind of like a Wile E. Coyote or Roadrunner or something like that. I'm like, all right, let's give it a try. So, you guys have any kind of connection like Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner, like Warner Brothers cartoons? I'm kind of putting it out there in a way of like, I'm not expecting a lot to come out of this. And they look at each other, they're like, yeah, so earlier today we had a long conversation about Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner in regards to our relationship dynamic. I'm like, let's start there.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
They were like, people were lining up, and one after the other was like that. That was my favorite one because it was so specific and so random and yet so tied in. So why did that, like this is the thing, people are, when they talk about pareidolia, faces in the clouds, it's usually thought of very inane and playful, and there's not a lot, valid in there for people. But the way I see it, it's a dream catcher. It's prompting something precognitive. Like in the randomness, I'm seeing something from up ahead. How could I have known?
Yeah.
Because they told me afterwards. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
And I love that
Yeah.
loop and turning that into an offering for people. So I ended up through that conversation catching a glimpse of this pattern, seeing the potential in there. Also, like, her name was Air, and the whole thing, like, the first thing I said, it's like, it's funny because Wile E. Coyote, it's all about belief, right? Like, he's so confident, he's walking on air
Yeah.
until he doubts himself and looks down, and that's when
Yeah.
he plummets. So there are so many different ways to look at the symbolism and the signs, and then I wove that into a poem, and they were super happy with that.
Wow.
They need a tattoo.
Yeah.
Maybe,
They just really need to
Get the
solidify this.
typewriter poem tattooed, chiseled into their skin.
That's so awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, if I had my setup here, I would love to do one for you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we want to
What-
film with you for this other thing, so
Let's do that when I come
yeah,
back.
that'd be so perfect.
Yeah.
Let's do a session of that. That would be so
Yeah.
cool, because that is wild magic, isn't it?
It totally. It's
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of blowing my mind because it will also even like what you're doing is kind of like walking on air. It's like it's not
It's
something
true.
you can think
It's
about
true.
too much. Like it
Yeah.
might have, if you thought about it, you would have been like, why am I going to bring up Wile E. Coyote right now?
That's
There's
it.
probably something more flattering.
Like I do second guess myself sometimes. For a while there, every cup I looked into, like one of them was like this jutting, like cliffside with this little stringy little palm tree coming off of it. So I said it, and that person was like, yeah, you know, I'm from an island, Costa Rica, so it's kind of like the palm trees and things like that. So I was like, oh, great. And then the next few cups like kept looking like similar things. It's like, oh, of course, tea leaves. Of course, they're going to look like palm trees
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that. But the next few people were her sisters. So
Oh
like the
my
second one, I figured
God.
that out, and I was like, okay, well, we're going to get a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So then I tried to look for other things too, and sometimes I wouldn't even see something, or I'd see like abstract. Like even if you look at my art, it's not always Englishable. You see like abstract shapes,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but then I try to look through that and like what comes up from what is my association. It's like vacation. It's like, when's the last time you had a vacation? And then people tell me about a vacation they went on together or something, and like an impression of like the sound of the frogs outside the window or this or that. And then I just weave that as if I'm in there. I weave that into some kind of offering that I can give them. It's like now your memory that has just come out of nowhere. Like it's not like this was on your mind, but this memory has been conjured up, has been kind of juiced for some kind of significance that you get to now carry with
Yeah.
you. So it's like, I think it's a really beautiful service. And
Yeah,
it's so
but-
aligned with everything else that I've been doing.
I mean, at the very least, to listen and receive and reflect back is such a gift. you
True.
know?
And it's less charged, I think, than like an astrological reading or a
Right,
tarot
right.
reading where you're like, whoa, this person knows some other stuff. And
Yeah.
like, what are we even messing with here? I don't know. It feels like
Just a weird guy with a bioport on my face sitting in a club reading tea leaves.
like, why not trust this guy? Wow. Yeah. It makes me think like just in an approach to life in a very zoomed out way, that's more the way to do it. And when you get caught up too much in all that stuff and overthinking and second guessing, like God knows what path you're setting yourself on. And but yeah, I don't. What I try to do, and especially lately, going broke and fucking feeling like things are falling apart, is just like really kind of just trusting in a bigger narrative that I had for my life, and it might take very strange turns to
Yeah.
get there, but it seems to be unfolding. So I try not to question it too much. That's why like we were dating this girl that is a deep astrological head, like way into that stuff, and I felt like at certain points it was like kind of blocking us from like forward momentum and like kind of more like whatever will be and type of energy. And it was more like, no, this is why this is happening. It was just like too precise in explaining every little fucking detail, and it started to bother me a little bit. I don't know.
Well, there's no way that even how much knowledge you have about something, your ego corrupts your reality tunnel. So if anyone knows better, and that's where it's like there's not a lot of, it's very loose and openness, and you're like,
Yeah.
And it's open
opening-
for interpretation
Yeah.
too.
Exactly.
And it ends with a poem which can be interpreted
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah, which is another kind of ink blot. It's just like a
Yeah.
stylized ink blot. Like
Yeah.
I've coalesced the ink into little letters. But it is that, and that's the thing I'm interested in is to... So like pareidolia is what I described, right? Meaningful patterns and random stimuli. But if you then... Because this is also how the mind works and how we view the world, and like conspiracy theories, just connecting the dots between things that are not connected. There are no constellations in the sky, folks. That's
Yeah,
like culturally sanctioned pareidolia.
Yeah.
But what happens when you think that those things are, that your perceptions are kind of set in stone or written in the stars, then we're dealing with pareidolatry. It's like a form of
Oh.
idolatry where you can no longer see the ink blot, only your interpretation. And then it's like bats, bats, wolves, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
Vaginas.
the perfect word to describe what I'm talking. And I've been struggling with it for months to like put words to even that. And there's a word for it.
Yeah,
You might have just
I
made
made it up.
Yeah.
but-
What's the word again?
Paradolatry.
Paradolatry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pareidolia it's made of 2 words. It's made of para and eidolon. Eidolon is the same as like idol. It's like image, and para
Mhm.
is like beside, so beside image. And then
Mm.
pareidolatry is like when it becomes an idol,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
like one of the ways that I framed it in my presentation too is that because pareidolia is considered so inane, what it's overlooking is the profound truth that the faces in the clouds aren't just you plotting faces in the clouds. It means that the clouds are an external stimuli that's taken in through your senses, processed in your brain with all your battering, and is then projected outwards, including your internal processes, and perceived as out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that changes the way that you look at the world, realizing, like, if you're looking at a stain on the sidewalk and you see a face in there, and you can actually outline that and make a mark, you realize, like, the whole inside-outside thing is a sleight of hand that's happening constantly. So I find it very interesting. And I've come up with another term, which is quixotification, which is, quixotic is like Don Quixote. Like, it should be called quixotification,
Yeah,
but for some reason Americans like the, quixotic. So Don Quixote is the famous story of a man who read a lot of books, and then he couldn't tell the difference between reality and the books, and he's fighting windmills.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this is what happens, is that our mind is made of media. Like, we've taken in so many, sitcoms, movies, books, languages, interactions, and all of this gets worked into our literal worldview. Like, the room you're seeing around here is constructed in your brain based on these stimuli and is then projected back out. So here we are in 3 separate rooms in one room that are somehow harmonizing with each other in this intersecting grid of perspectives.
Wow.
And so, like, knowing, like, the idea that we are creating our reality, but we're doing it together. It's not like one of us is like the god in this situation, and if you can do it harmoniously, you can co-create reality, right? Which is ultimately, that's the real church of chill, right?
That it's ultimately what it's all
Amen.
about.
Amen,
That's
yeah.
what it's all about. How does this apply to dreams? Because I think it kind of does.
So there's this notion that, let me see how I can best frame that. That the dream is like your way of that remixing itself, working itself out, sifting through different ideas away from the stimuli, like things that still stick around. So maybe you get a better sense of what it is that's getting mixed up in the stimulus experience. And also, like, that guy Eric Wargo, one of the books he wrote, one of them is Time Loops, and one of them is Precognitive Dream Work and the Long Self. And the Long Self is what you were saying earlier, like, kind of zooming out into this, like, you don't have to know all the specifics, but you can follow your intuition, which is just another word for precognition, I think,
Yeah.
You're like, in German they say Vorgefühl, or in Dutch even Voorgevoel, which is like a presentiment.
Yeah.
You don't even have to say it in another language. You can just say presentiment. You're feeling it before it's happening. The precognitive dream work element too, like, he's very much about, like, write down every little thing you remember from a dream, even if it's trivial, especially if it's trivial, because those are a lot of times things that you'll then start recognizing coming back,
Ooh, that's good.
Like, maybe last night you dreamt of a little typewriter, and then I'm sitting here with this little finger piano, and I do this, and you're like, oh, that's the click,
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
And I like it too because, synchronicity is always a big theme, I think, that goes around, and there's kind of this thing of, like, synchronicity, it means you're on the right track, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's even cooler when you think of it, synchronicity as something orchestrated by yourself in the future, winking, being like, this way, it's safe this way, there's survival this way.
Yeah.
That it's a game you're playing with yourself throughout time. Because then there doesn't need to be, like, some conclusion to it. It just leads you, again, to, like, moments like this where we're safe, we're together, we're having a good time, we're conversing, and we can, like, send this back to ourselves in this same room a few days ago when we met, you know?
I mean, I fully, and this sounds far out, it might even sound conceited, but, like, I watch the movies that we end up making in my head before they exist. So, and I've always kind of taken it for granted until very recently, and I'm like,
in very
what is that?
specific terms, or the feels?
It can be very specific
Really?
sometimes. Yeah.
And they're documentary films. It's not even like
It hasn't even happened yet.
It hasn't even happened yet, but I'm like, I can tap into it. I think it's like one of the reasons I do this is like because I can so clearly see what it is, and I'm like, we just have to make that.
I love that.
It's so easy, you know.
I mean,
like
that's
I already see it.
That's it. I mean, you guys are also like, I think this isn't the first time you've been lysergically altered. I think this is probably something more regular. And what it does, I think, is it can erode these notions of the self that get in the way, you know? Like, ultimately, the self is this physical entity of action, and the other, like, mental hallucinatory self needs to like, stay out of the way, stay out of this, and let the action work itself out through time.
Yeah.
And you know that I think it's like a TikTok effect or something where it's like a person's walking and then there's like a frame of themselves up ahead and then they like hit that frame and then that one's in motion, you know, like it feels like that, like there's these different cells in the zoetrope of your animate life that are waiting for you to like touch onto it, and if you're like open to it in that way, you can like catch that wind on your face. You can smell it ahead, you know? Yeah,
that's what acids helped us tap into. Yeah. Is like, that's a real one. That's something worth, you know.
And that's really what I've always felt with LSD specifically, is that it's this kind of, you catch waves of something up ahead in time, which is sometimes why it feels very like techno, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like chips in the brain, you know, like cyborg reality up ahead.
Yeah. Totally different than a mushroom or an ayahuasca or DMT thing.
No, it feels very much like that. Also, like, I've had times I'd look up at the sky and there's just way more stars than there are supposed to be. And then I'm like, am I looking light years away from here now? Am I seeing stars that died already?
I've experienced that same thing. I've looked up and they were organized like graph paper. And I just stared at it for so long. And I'm like, is that how it always is? Like, Like, I'm not that fucked up. Like, that's the only hallucinatory thing I'm seeing.
Even our altered mind has that parabolic thing too, where it'll make like
we want to organize
I feel it the most. Like, I can watch two flames fight with each other, like, and have a whole experience. And it's when I'm on an altar. Yeah, it's totally when I'm altered or staring at the fire. It's like, it feels very dramatic, whatever it is, or you know, you can put so much feeling and meaning, and it probably is just your self-created reflection of it. But
well, I mean, in that sense, if you're looking at two flames that are like sword fighting or something, you know, like I had this instance by the river in California, by the Yuba River, which, have you ever been to the Yuba River?
I don't think
Nevada
so.
City?
No.
I'd like to take you guys there sometime.
I would love to go.
Yeah.
Precog!
Let's do it.
Precog riverine reverie. No, that place is magic. And once, it was like 2007 or something, I had a very psychedelic summer. And at one point I took, it only takes one hit for me. And I'm like, I'm already so like 1 foot in another world. So I just like opened it up. The rocks alongside the river became these perfect sculptures, like Rodin's garden of rock sculptures. And all these sculptures were foretelling a part of my mind, or like telling the story, also again of my fears and hopes and dreams. And it gave me this really beautiful illustration about love. Actually, let's go back to fear first, because this actually ties into the whole wolves and bats thing.
Yeah.
So I'd taken it at night. Everybody else had been tripping during the day, and then I took it at night, and they were going to go to sleep in a bit, and I was
You're
just
the person that were like, come on, just do it with us.
I want to have a terrifying William Blake-like experience, all right? And so, like, I'm walking alongside this riverbed, and I'm like, my feet are chewing the gravel, like the little stones along the riverbank, and then the full moon starts kind of like seeping some of its light out from behind a cloud. And it's shining on this one rock that's like, it's like an oyster. It's like this opened 2-rock bit, and it's shining a little spotlight in there, and there's this shadow where the pearl is supposed to be, but now there's just peril. This like wolf. I see like a wolf with an arched back, like Halloween style, like an arched cat back almost, with like fur on end. And I'm like, ooh, that's not a real wolf, right? Like, I'm just like, my mind is kind of conjuring shadows or something, and I'm like walking towards it, and then I can't walk anymore. I'm like petrified. And then like the moon blasts the whole plain, and like everything is like covered in this silver glow, and there's like this shadow up ahead, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to find out if that's a real wolf or not. Like, even if I don't want to conjure some like wolf of my fears. And so I kind of like turned away, and I was playing my didgeridoo on the water a little bit, and the waves coming in are almost like little movie cells, and there's like light of the moon dancing on there, and they look like little Tinkerbell animation, like a little Midsummer Night Dream, little fairies dancing on the surface of the water. And then they start talking to me, basically. Like, the lights are configuring something in my mind, and it's like, wow, that was terrifying, huh? That fearful wolf you saw. You know, don't you kind of wish that you had confronted it in that moment? I kind of do wish that I had done that. And it's like, well, you know, that moment is still now, right? You want to go confront it and check it out? And I was like, all right. And I look up, and like there's these rocks, and they look kind of like Bedouins on camels. And I was like, I must warn the others. And then I'm like, what am I talking about? There's no Bedouins on camels. Let me go check this out. So I go in the direction. I climb over the Bedouin camel rocks. And now I'm looking at this vista with like this river, which is like the river of time, you know, like pouring under the full moonlight, and all the rocks are glistening and wet in moonlight, and they're all, it's a sculpture garden.
Wow.
And on this one side of the riverbank, there's 3 distinct idols, I'd say, made out of rocks. One of them is, it's like a T-Rex, like the ruins, like the fossils of a T-Rex, like slain by the riverbed. A little further up, there's like unicorn rubble. There's like the skeleton of a unicorn, and then there's like cyborg bits scattered around, which later I interpret this, and I'm like, okay, the river of time, right?
The past.
There's the past. There's
Dinos.
We're propelling ourselves towards our own extinction on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Then we've got this future where it's kind of like this techno, you know, integrated human hybrid future. And then there's the unicorn rubble, which is like all my fantasies have been abolished. Like this, now I'm like facing the truth, facing the fear. And the fear is a lot of it is like fear of the unfamiliar, and some of it's fear of the familiar. And that was the next bit. There was this rock family. There was this like, he was like a knight, like very, very strong. He had this one arm up, kind of like Statue of Liberty, and he was holding on as the river was like rushing past him, and you could see like the glinting armor in the moonlight. And then there was this maiden that was like clinging to him, and she was like touching his face, and she was going shh, shh, like calming him. And then they had a child on their hip, like a little purse. And so it was like he was holding on in this stream that was trying to, like, time was trying to destroy them.
Wow.
But they were holding fast in this family unit. And next to them there was this like alien, kind of like from the Naked Lunch, Cronenberg, the mugwumps. But it's like the breakneck speeds of the river had like snapped its neck, and it was just like dead next to them, and they were holding on in this stream. And then I later wrote it down because I could see them breathing, you know, like they were so real. And then I wrote down, I know they're not real, they're just how I feel, but they live and they breathe. They love and they breathe in the face of a stream that knows nothing thereof. They breathe and they love in the face of a stream that knows nothing thereof.
Wow. Sounds like a Grateful Dead lyric.
It could have been. It was this feeling of like, I guess the question was like, what is love? You know, is love something that exists in nature? Is nature indifferent? And kind of what this was showing me is that love is like this human principle, which is why people like stop believing in it. They're like, I don't believe in love, and it's just people just fuck each other over. Da, da, da. It's like, no, this is something that doesn't exist in the natural world. Like, of course, there's nurturing and there's nourishing and things like that, but love and the family unit in the way that we've kind of conceived that is like a human invention. It's like the thing that was missing in the indifference of the stream. Like, it wasn't that God is love, it's that there was no God and there was no love. But we invented these things and brought them into being as a value that we serve.
Wow.
Yeah, love
And
is the
so-
only thing I believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something, we serve it in both senses of the word, you know, like we serve it and we serve it on a platter to each other.
Yeah.
And so that was like huge. So when you see like two flames fighting each other, it's your inner processes, like your dualities battling it out or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's so valuable for that, you know, to be able to divine what's on your mind. You guys Talking Heads fans at all?
Of course.
Huge.
Yeah. You know, there's I think a line in like Slippery People, which also like, I mean, who are these slippery people? That seems like trickster territory right there. He has a line like that, try to recognize what is on your mind. It's like, that's it.
Yep.
God help us lose our mind. These slippery people, help us understand.
Trying to call in a Talking Heads reunion. There's little wispy discussions of that potentially happening for the 40th anniversary of Stop Making Sense. So
Really?
Ooh.
yeah, they're the only band I can think of that would it would be huge if they reunited. I'm like, I can't think of many bands like outside
Yeah.
my punk thing that would be as big as Talking Heads playing.
I
Yeah.
love them so much. I mean, I love David Byrne so much.
Oh yeah.
It's like, especially like Speaking in Tongues, Remain in Light, like
Yeah.
that era is just the lyrics, the music. It's just
Oh
they
my
were
God.
so ahead of their time. Still,
Yeah.
talk about precognition again.
Yeah.
Like they
Wow.
caught something that still the world is catching up to.
Absolutely, they were ahead of their
Mm.
time, but also were the sound of the '80s in a way. Like,
Yeah.
like I could probably go through every decade and be like, "That's the band that was the sound." I think for the '80s, at least for me, it's like
Yeah.
Talking Heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
I mean, we could talk forever.
Yeah, we just talked for a while, so I figure
Yeah, no, I feel like they're doing stuff around here. We did
I
it.
didn't even notice. But
Mhm.
Just setting up for an event, it seems.
promote your stuff. You know.
Oh, yeah. So, if anybody wants to learn more about me, go to theungoogleable.com. I have a podcast called Self-Portraits as Other People, which, comes out with an episode once in a while, but there's a good little backlog of 20-something episodes that you
Hell
can
yeah.
submerge yourself in. And if you're in New York City, come visit the Athenaeum. On October 3rd, I'm going to take my stuff down, and we're going to do like a closing night event, which hopefully you guys
Yeah.
will be able
Cool.
to attend as
Yeah.
well.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, what else should I tell people? Oh, I have these. So I've been doing these things called paradoodles. So the paintings on the walls here, they're called divined designs, which is that same technique, the pareidolia, and then I pull the divined designs out of it. But I also did a bunch of little small ones that I've been selling for $25 a piece called paradoodles.
Oh, yeah,
those
we
are
were looking
awesome.
through those
are
at the
great.
event. They're awesome.
Cool, yeah. So you can check them out on my Instagram, which you can find through my website, or just void_denizen. Yeah, I think that's enough information. Theungoogleable.com is the best place to find me. Oh yeah, Patreon. If you want to
Please,
be
what
my
is your
be
Patreon?
my friend, it's patreon.com/voiddenizen.
Dope.
Support this. Support
Yeah.
this fool. Come on. Support us fools. We're
Yeah, support them too.
patreon.com/churchofchill. We'll be doing lots more stuff together. I think it's really cool that we have a podcast as like a demarcation of when we first met and became friends.
I love it.
and
I love it.
We'll see where it goes from here. Well, I think we'll do lots more of these. And
Yeah.
we have you in mind for some other stuff. So
Super exciting, guys.
cool. Patreon.com/churchofchill. Thanks for joining us. It's the Verrier Podcast. Peace, love, and magic. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was
Yeah.
really wonderful.